Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, and specifically the Arsenal News Show. I hope you're doing good. I hope you are well today. I hope you're doing so good that you could take the second to drop a finger down on that thumbs up button, hit that like button, as I say, and please do subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I hope you're doing well this morning. Let's jump into the chat box and see what you guys are saying. It's so good to see so many of you jump in the chat box even before the show started to say good morning to everyone. It's like a community that we're building here. So thank you ever so much for all of that and all of the support that you're showing the channel continually. Good morning, Jose, Matt, Bungle, MFB, Dimitri, Temi, Venkatesh, Carl. I'm sorry, has the mic not been selected? There's that moment. Oh, hold on. Here we go. Why is it not plugged in? See, this is the microphone that you can hear me on currently. And I've got this plugged in, and it's not for some reason picking that up. Give me 1 second. Can you hear me better now? I'm hoping that you can. I don't know why it does that. I mean, I don't know why I'm blaming the equipment. It should be on me to check. It should be on me to check it. I hope that's working fine and well for you now. Good morning, guys. Good morning, everybody. It's really irritating when the technology lets you down. It's so frustrating. Anyway, let's crack on with today's news because we've got some good stuff to talk about and go through. So let's do that, shall we? First of all, of course, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the Arsenal Way. Link is in the description. We've got our morning show at 9:30 a.m. Monday to Friday, so you'll be able to join us for that. And we've got our first tactical show coming out today as well, which I'm very excited to talk more about on the morning show at 9:30 a.m. So please make sure you do tune in to that. As I say, link to the channel is in the description. If you haven't already watched our podcast from yesterday, I was joined by Mike and by Sophie from the Gooners Pod and from the Hybrid Squad. And also making his debut was Albert. So please do go and listen back to our podcast from yesterday evening, covering all of the happenings from the Burnley game, performances, social reactions, how fans are feeling, how some would rather see us lose just to get rid of the manager, loads of stuff that we talked about. So make sure that you go and tune in for that one. But we start with a fitness update just to keep you in the loop. If you haven't seen already the comments regarding some of the players after the game against Burnley, Thomas Partey, Mikel Arteta says he struggled at the end. He was cramping, but that will come because he's missed a long time and he needs some fitness back. So Partey, not serious, should be back for the North London derby. Fingers crossed. He should be absolutely fine for that. And on Kieran Tierney, Arteta said that, again, he had a problem. Arteta confirmed after the game. I think he was cramping. The pitch was pretty difficult today. It was quite long. And obviously, that is just a short-term problem. I wouldn't expect to see Partey or Tierney play against Wimbledon in midweek. We'd expect to see the likes of Maitland-Niles, Lokonga come in and see Tavares play at left back. So that's what we can expect from there. Other injury updates in the squad. Rob Holding and Emil Smith-Rowe both back and fit. Smith-Rowe, of course, came off in the 60th minute against Burnley. No issue. Was purely tactical, so he is fine. And Rob Holding was in the squad involved as well. So he is fully recovered from his knee problem that was keeping him out of the squad as well. So he will likely start against Wimbledon on Wednesday. And spotted in the background of one of the training images has confirmed that Mohamed Elneny has returned to the squad sooner than expected. He was suffering with, I believe, a hamstring problem. He is now returned to the squad, as you can see from the image in the background of this training injury. Training injury is completely the wrong set of words in the wrong sequence. As you can see from the back of this image, that he has returned from his injury. There you go. Perfectly delivered. So lots of the squad have returned. In fact, we're struggling now to think of anyone that's not available. The only player that isn't going to be available for the Wednesday match is Granit Xhaka, who is, of course, suspended. So there you go. Going then on to our next story. Under 23s absolutely battered Chelsea Football Club. And it was glorious. It was absolutely glorious to see not only Mika Biereth score a hat-trick and Salah Adine to score his goal, but following Balogun also got 2 goals. Now, based on the fact that we beat Manchester United's under 23s, Arsenal released the highlights. Hopefully, considering it was such a battering performance, that these guys can also have the highlights put up from the game so that all of the fans can see it, and not just those with access to certain media clips. But amazing performance from the guys. When you consider the fact that the under-23s last season just avoided the kind of the drop specifically, and they avoided it by, I think it was the last game of the season that they avoided it. And now Arsenal currently sit in second place after 5 games with 4 wins and 1 loss, which of course they lost quite heavily to West Ham. There was a lot of concern about that fixture. Things are going really well, really well, and it's good to see that Arsenal's under-23s have turned a bit of a corner. Manchester City's side still currently top, 5 games, 4 wins, 1 draw. But Arsenal specifically are having a really good time in the under-23s league after the 6-1. They actually play Manchester City on Saturday. So that is a top of the table clash for the under-23s. Of course, Arsenal play their game on Sunday. So if there is any way that you can get down and watch the under-23s, I think they might be away, so you might be hard-pressed. They are in Manchester. But anyway, you can show some support to the under-23s as they have their top-of-the-table clash against Manchester City's under-23s this coming weekend. Then make sure you get behind the sides. But following Balogun, really putting in some work and showing Arteta that he should be considered for the game in midweek. We're hoping that we're going to see Balogun play against Wimbledon alongside the likes of Alexandre Lacazette as well, and giving them opportunities. So hopefully we can see that as well. We're going to be talking a lot more about Balogun and him forcing his way into the team on the Arsenal Way later on this afternoon. So if you haven't already subscribed to the Arsenal Way, click the link in the description and you will find everything there. So speaking of players playing well, these two are having a rather good time in France. William Saliba and Hector Guendouzi. Guendouzi, we know, is going to be leaving at the end of this season on a permanent deal for around £9 million, which looks at this stage an absolute bargain for OM today, because the fact that he is playing so well far outweighs that £9 million price tag that was put on his head by the club. And Marseille are just having a really good time under Jorge Sampaoli. The Chilean manager has got them playing in a chaotic, it's kind of organised chaos. You know, I don't know how organised it is, but it's chaotic and fun, and it's great to watch. Marseille fans on the edge of their seats for so much of their game. Sampaoli definitely showing what it's like to play some exciting football, playing a 3-3-3-1 kind of formation. It's really odd, but it's working whilst they don't have Milik available, and Payet is playing kind of this really, or Payet is playing kind of this really advanced role while that's going on, but it's working. And they're currently second in the table in France in Liga, and Saliba and Guendouzi have been a massive part of that. Guendouzi, we know, is leaving. Saliba, we know, still has a chance of a future at Arsenal. I have my doubts as to whether that will happen under Mikel Arteta, but based on the performances he's putting in this season and continuously and consistently showing his quality, it makes no sense why they wouldn't put Saliba in the squad next season. But hey, who knows anymore? Hector Bellerin as well, in a 2-2 draw for Real Betis yesterday against Espanyol, got an assist, setting up Nabil Fekir. He fought extremely hard and well to win the ball back when it looked like it had been lost, slid in, won it inside the opposition box, laid the ball back to Fekir, who finished very, very calmly and impressively. All of our loanees having some decent times. Although saying that, Reece Nelson, of course, was not involved with Feyenoord because he's currently out injured because of the intense training sessions going on at Feyenoord, as is Lucas Torreira. He was on the bench for Fiorentina in their 2-1 win. I think it was over Genoa, but he did not come off the bench in that game either. So, and then trying to look now at Mavropanos, they lost 3-1 to Leverkusen. And Mavropanos did start on the right-hand side, but there was a red card for someone. Oh, sorry, a red card for Robert Andorich of Bayer Leverkusen. But still, despite a 31st minute red card for Bayer Leverkusen, they still went on to beat Mavropanos' Stuttgart away from home 3-1, with obviously Florian Wirtz getting on the score sheet. So there is all of your Arsenal-related news this morning. And catching you up with all the latest info. So we do move on to the final part of the show, which is where you can throw your thoughts, your theories, your questions, and your feelings into the chat box. And we'll try and go through as many of them in the next 10 minutes or so as possible. If you haven't already, please do go check out our podcast from yesterday evening. I was joined by Mike and Sophie and Albert, and we covered lots of stuff and answered lots of questions. So please do go and listen to that. I'll be joining the boys over on the Arsenal Lounge this evening, as always, on a Monday, 8 p.m. Looking forward to catching up with Shaheen and Mo and Lev to talk all things Arsenal once again. So if you aren't checking out the Arsenal Lounge, please make sure you are doing that. Match G drops in our first question of the morning, saying Pepe goes into the final year of his contract next year. What is the minimum he needs to do this season to get an extension? I don't know, Matt, if the club can afford not to give Nicolas Pepe a new contract. For me, when you've got a player that you've paid that much for, can you really let him go for free? I think it makes sense that they just renew the contract just to try and protect the asset and protect their value. It would be a bit strange not to see the club push to sign him onto a new deal, but he may have different ideas. He may not be too keen on remaining at Arsenal, a place where he hasn't been able to flourish as much as maybe many people expected him to. And so therefore, maybe that a kind of a contract is nowhere near assured with Pepe. But from the club's perspective, can they really afford not to give kind of a £72 million signing a new deal? I'm not sure that they can. Step says, if we draw at the weekend, does Arteta have to go? I mean, I don't expect him to go. We've won our last 2 games, and that would be 3 unbeaten, including a draw in the North London derby. So no, step 1, 2, I don't think it would. Maya says, William Saliba over Ben White, both have potential. We chose the latter. Arteta wrote off Saliba in 10 minutes. Ben White didn't have the best of games at the weekend, and when Saliba does have a very good game and Ben White doesn't, you're always going to see these comparisons being drawn up. I said previously, I was like, if it was a case of we brought Saliba back and we didn't go for Ben White, we could have saved money in that defensive area and then invested more heavily in a central midfielder. You could argue that may have been a smarter move, but we got Ben White now, so let's appreciate what we've got with Ben White. He didn't have the best of games at the weekend, but he has shown some real quality and potential in the Premier League. John says, I hope I'm not a broken record, but would you think Pepe would make a better sub when defenses tire and we need a jolt of instant energy? I think you have to pick between him and Saka. I think I'm going to write a piece about this today, that you have to choose between Saka and Pepe for me. You can't play both. Or if you do play both, I don't think you can any longer put Saka on the left, because Saka on the left is just really restricting what he's able to do. I think he's better with both feet in comparison to Pepe. I think his right foot's better than Pepe's right foot. And so I think he would be better suited on the right-hand side. And if you think back to the middle part of last season, when we were playing during that festive period, Pepe did really well on the left-hand side. So there is the scope to do that. Yes, I think that Pepe's he's shown some, his best position is on the right-hand side. Like, I'm not saying that it's not. I just think that he has shown some good performances on the left. And it's to say that he can play there if need be. But they're both better on the right. But at the end of the day, I think you can only play one. I think I'd rather see Emile Smith-Rowe probably play on the left-hand side with Odegaard at number 10 and then playing Lokonga in midfield alongside Partey. You could either put Gabriel or Martinelli on the left-hand side if you wanted to. But I think you have to choose between Pepe and Saka at the moment. I don't think that you can choose both of them right now because they are extensively right wingers, and it's probably unbalancing the side because we've got one side that's much more efficient than the other, and maybe that's partly down to the fact that Saka's having a bit of a poor time at the moment. EGTV Igal says, hi Tom, I've been generally impressed by the new signings of all the players besides Ben White. Are you concerned currently about Ben White's early performances at Arsenal? Absolutely not. He got one game, he then got ill, he came back against Norwich and was very decent. I thought his distribution was really good against Norwich, pushed out from the back really well. And against Burnley, one of the biggest criticisms that people had of Ben White, of course, was his strongest part of his game, his distribution. Now, if you're going to bet on Ben White to turn any part of his game around, it's going to be his passing. So I'm not really concerned about that. What I was impressed by Ben White was his aerial ability. Besides Tomiyasu, he had the highest percentage aerial duel wins of any player in the Arsenal side. And that's the area of the pitch that we thought he was going to fall down on. So actually, I'm all right with Ben White and having that game. Everyone's going to have an off game here and there. It's 3 games he's had, I think, in a competitive level into the season. Let's let him settle. Let's let him adjust. Let's let him get him moving. And he plays alongside Gabriel. You've got a really good partnership that can form between those two. I think ruining the idea of sending Saliba on loan is just not healthy. Like, he was always going to go on loan. He was never going to play under Arteta. I said I'd rather that he went out on loan because Arteta was never going to play him. So what was the point in keeping a player that Arteta was never going to use? So I think it was better that he went out on loan. If we were going to improve the centre-back area, Ben White, I think, is the perfect addition for his distribution. It just needs to be a bit more consistent, and he is still only 23, so we need to see that improvement come forward. So, no, I'm not concerned, again, not at this moment in time. Ask me again in a month's time, and maybe we can have a better assessment of his kind of play so far. Let's not spam my chat. Thank you very much. Let's go to ADT. Says, I'm genuinely worried that Ben White is going to be a massive flop. Again, these worries after, 3 games is mad. Like, how are we already worried about 3 games? It's honestly, you can't judge a player after 3 games. If that's the case, then Jadon Sancho should be written off as a Man United player. Absolutely written off. They should never play for the club again. But no, that's not true. We're just letting and seeing these players adjust and transition into their sides. Some players start a little bit slowly. You cannot say a player is going to be a flop after 3 games. It's ridiculous. Maya says, do you think that we are not using Martinelli properly? Plus, there should be a proper communication between Tierney and him. I just don't think Martinelli's getting in the squad at the moment. Like, if you think back to the first 2 games of the season, against Brentford, against Chelsea, he was invisible. Martinelli didn't do anything in those 2 games. And I like the kid. I want the kid to succeed at Arsenal, but I don't think it's overly critical to say that he didn't do anything in those 2 games against Brentford or against Chelsea. Arsenal were bad overall in both of those fixtures. But I don't see Martinelli how he gets into this team. The only way I see him getting into the team is if he plays on Wednesday as an absolute stormer against Wimbledon and smashes it on the left, and he comes into play on the left-hand side. As I said, I think that the opportunity to choose between Saka and Pepe maybe opens the door for Martinelli to get into the team on the left-hand side. And maybe that would, as you say, Maya, link to that communication between him and Tierney. If there isn't that already, then they need to develop that connection between each other. Gustavo says, hey, Tom, I saw a picture of last year's game against Burnley and how Xhaka freaked out and then scored and we lost the game. Fast forward to this year, and Ramsdale commanded his area, and back 4 looks good. Look, we talked about this on yesterday's podcast in a lot of detail, the effect that Ramsdale's having on the team, and also those rumours about Bernd Leno being promised to start in the North London derby. If Leno comes in against Spurs, I'm sorry, but there is no one that can accept that decision. There's no one that can turn around and say, yeah, that's the right choice, because it just doesn't make any sense at all to go for Leno over Ramsdale in that game. Ramsdale is showing absolutely why Arteta picked him. At the moment, Arteta's got a lot going for him because the players that he bought, the players that he pushed for, Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, Ødegaard, all 3 of these players, the 3 ones that he heavily pushed for, have absolutely smashed their starts to the campaign. Ødegaard's played 3-1-2. Tomiyasu's played 2-1-2. Ramsdale's played 2-1-2. You can't have any criticisms about their game so far. They have all done really well, and they are all Arteta's picks. Not Edu's picks, Arteta's picks. So you have to turn around and say, fair play. He got those ones right so far, but there's a long season, and we're going to have to make a judgment as we go throughout the season. But the judgment right now is that they are pretty darn good signings. And we'll move forward with that. Manu says, which loan do you think will surprise us the most this season? For me, it's either Reece or Ballard. I think Guendouzi. And it's not a loan because it's a loan with an obligation. But I think Guendouzi is going to surprise me because I've written him off. I didn't really know what he was about. I didn't know what he brought to Arsenal. But this season, he's rubbing it in my face is what Guendouzi's doing. And I'm gutted because whilst usually I'd be like, yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to be proved wrong by an Arsenal player, but I'm not thrilled to be proved wrong about Guendouzi because he's going. So I think, if anything, Guendouzi's going to surprise a lot of people, including myself. I think Saliba's having a great season. He hopefully will surprise Arteta. I don't think Saliba's going to have a surprising season because we know he's got quality. Ballard, I think we know too, has got a fair amount of quality. Showed that last season at Blackpool. Tyrese John-Jules, I think this is a make or break season. I think it's going to probably be a break season. I think you'll see John-Jules probably leaving. Miguel Aziz on loan at Portsmouth. Fingers crossed we see a lot of him this season. In fact, has Miguel Aziz played? Because I haven't actually had a time to check up whether or not he's been involved yet. He did play. He played at 10 He got substituted. I'm trying to look when he got substituted for Portsmouth. Let's have a look. When did Miguel Aziz? They lost 2-1 at home to Cambridge, so not the best result. Miguel Aziz came off in the 59th minute. So not the best, it seems, if he was brought off. I don't know why he was brought off, and I haven't seen the game, so I can't fully comment. But I'll tell you what, we will be able to bring you all the information about Miguel Aziz this season because we're doing our reports all year. In fact, this week, fingers crossed, we're going to bring in you our youth update. And I've been promising that for a little while, but this week we should be doing our youth update. But we're doing a tactical report every single month for all of our loanees. You can check out our ones from last month. We did of Saliba and we did of Daniel Ballard. We'll be doing the same thing at the end of September. I'll be talking to plenty of people about how Saliba's getting on, about how Ballard again's getting on, about how Miguel Aziz is going as well, amongst others too. So looking forward to bringing you all of that good stuff as we go into the end of September. Anne says, remember when so-called pundits were saying that Ben White was too good for us? Opinions can change as quickly as that. Yeah, I mean, it's any chance to bash Arsenal in it. It's what we see. Jonathan says, Ben White was scrutinised even before the game against Burnley for his supposed weak aerial ability because of a price tag he didn't set. He should have done better in that game, but let's give him a break. Absolutely. And I thought his aerial ability was good. He dealt with the aerial balls really, really well. You can't criticise that. Carl says, Pompey, manager to blame for this team selection. I don't know why Aziz is at 10. I didn't think Aziz was at 10, to be honest. Chris P says, aside from the back pass, I think White had an okay game. Don't you think his performance is just being overshadowed by how good Gabriel and Tommy was? It's a really good point, Chris. When two players either side of you are having unbelievable games, naturally it's going to make you not look as good as that. So, yeah, it's a very solid and fair point. Venkatesh says, what's your view on Alan Saint-Maximin as a potential winger, Grealish-esque? I will wait until the end of the season. At the end of last season, I wasn't impressed by Saint-Maximin. I looked at him as very much a flair player, a lot of show, no go sort of thing. But maybe this season's the season in which he proves me wrong. Maybe that happens. But based on everything I've seen up to the end of last season, I wasn't overly impressed by very much just a very skillful flair player, Adama Traore style, kind of a lot of show, no go type of player. Not for me right now. But, you know, he's dragging Newcastle at certain points in certain games, so maybe we'll see him prove me wrong. Iago Ann says, do you think that we'd... Oh, by the way, Amin, in the chat, the Raw reaction shows, I did reply to your comment, they're not coming straight after the game because I have a job. It's as simple as that, really. But in regards to your question, do you think we will need to go for a left winger in January? It depends on if anyone goes. Right now, no, because we have plenty of options in the wide areas. Judy says, do you think that Sambi is better than Matteo? I mean, we've seen what? Sambi we've seen based off of 3-ish games. Matteo Guendouzi I've seen a lot more of, and based on those 3 games from Lokonga, I know exactly what you're going to get from Lokonga. I don't know yet what you'd get from Guendouzi in an Arsenal shirt, but for Marseille, Guendouzi has been excellent. He's been really good. So we will wait until the end of the season. It's to ask me who's better based off of the fact of 5-6 games in the season is not long enough to me to sit here and go, yes, he's better. He's better. Like it's not enough time for me to make an assessment, I'm afraid. Manu says, does it surprise you how quickly Sambi and Tommy are becoming fan favourites? No. I mean, if you come into the club and you play really well in your first few games, you're going to get those fans on side immediately, especially if you're not that expensive. I mean, if you're 15 to 20 to 25 million pounds and you're having an absolutely storming time, you're going to be loved because there's kind of that cult following around types of players like that are just bargains that do really, really well. There's no expectation on Sambi. There's none. Like, if you think about it, coming into this season, Lokonga came in as a 21-year-old in a position on the pitch where we thought we were going to sign another centre midfielder and Xhaka was going to go. So because we didn't bring in another centre midfielder, all the expectation is that Xhaka is just the villain of much of the fan base. Much of the fan base are just done with him. So any good displays that Lokonga puts him in a position where people are wanting him to start over Xhaka. And when he does and plays well, it's easy because he's
he's a left field pick. He's an unknown. He's an unknown quantity for so many people because they don't know him. So seeing him come in and do really well is making it really easy. Same with Tomiyasu. Who can honestly say that they watched Bologna week in, week out? What, less than 1%? Far less than 1%. So when we see him come in and do really well as an unknown quantity with not the most expectation in the world, very easy to become a fan favourite. Ben White comes in, £50 million, Premier League experience, England international. Much, much harder. Much, much harder to become a fan favourite because people kind of know what they're going to get. We've heard so much. There's so many experts around that have said their piece on Ben White. There's so many things that have been said about him already. After one game against Brentford, Gary Neville did a dedicated section on breaking down why he won't succeed and what his problems are. There is nothing positive to come from the Ben White transfer from a social point of view. So that's why it doesn't surprise me how quickly those types of players can become fan favourites very, very fast. GGTV for you says Ben White won all but one of his aerial battles. Clean sheet. People need to give him a break. As Marom says, Tom, do you think AFC need some pacey and direct wingers, specifically on the left-hand side? Well, I think Martinelli's a very direct player. Like, if you give Martinelli the opportunity to play on the left consistently in the Premier League alongside all of his first-team teammates with, you know, the likes of Erdegaard and Smith Rowe supporting him, I think that he could be a very, very effective player. But at the moment, he's not been getting in the team. He's not been getting in the team whatsoever. Adeyemi is not a winger. Adeyemi is very much a striker. I know he can play in a wider area, but Adeyemi is a striker absolutely all day long. And I'll be bringing him in without a shadow of a doubt. He's the new Zobosly, is our Adeyemi. Ian says, Tom, do you think Edu will sign a midfielder in January? They always surprise us with signings in January in the last few years, from the likes of Kim Kallström to Martin Erdegaard and Arshavin. Again, who knows what's going to happen in January? We don't have a clue what we're going to go. We don't know what players are going to be injured. We don't know who's going to be going off to the African Cup of Nations for a month. We know about Elneny and Partey, but things could change between then and now. So we'll see what happens. But there's no way of me predicting right now what's happening with those players in January and how we will approach the January window. What's your starting 11 for the Wimbledon game? Join us for the preview show tomorrow and you can find out. Seb says Saka looks best when he's wide. Arteta seems to play him more narrow and he doesn't look as good in my opinion. I think he needs to play on the right-hand side personally. Seb, that would be where I would put it. Yes, Olu, very good point. Ben White has the issue of the Saliba fans as well hanging over his head. Very, very true. When you've got a young player that's a fan favourite without playing a single game for Arsenal, staggering as it is, it's always going to be much more difficult as the player that comes in to replace him and takes his number. So there you go. We're going to wrap things up there. Please do drop a like on today's video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on, so you never miss a show. If you're not done talking about Arsenal, you can join me at 9:30 a.m. over on the Arsenal Way. Link is in the description to the channel. Please make sure you click that link, go subscribe to it, and come and join us. We've got a tactical show coming out a little bit later on as well. More info will be divulged on the show as well. But other than that, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you as it always is. And as always, up the Arsenal.